We have the next session that's coming on, and this is the topic Bharat Amrit Kal, India's new strategic direction. Well, I'm sure we always wish that we had a crystal ball to show us how things are going to pan out for investments under volatile times. And that would make our life simpler or not. That is just a question. We have with us today Mr. Karan Datta, who will decode the policy measures that will take place in the years to come and what this means for us as Indian and as mutual fund professionals. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been a part of financial services for over 2 decades and has had leadership roles in global and domestic firms such as Goldman Sachs, Franklin Templeton, and Axis Mutual Fund. His last role was as Chief Business Officer at Axis Mutual Fund, where he was part of the founder member team and has led the organization to being amongst the top 7 asset managers in India. He now spends time studying geopolitical events and their economic implications, and he's an avid sportsman and a speaker on variety of topics. Today, he's with us here to talk about something that is very relevant to all of us. Please put your hands together for Mr. Datta.
Thank you. आजकल बहुत interesting times हो गए हैं. For the first time after so many years, I'm listening to fund managers speak about geopolitical events in the world and their impact on portfolios. So obviously times have changed. I started speaking about this 6-7 years ago. तब कोई मेरी सुनता नहीं था. Thankfully अब थोड़े लोग सुनने लग गए इस topic के बारे में. Before I start, I wanted to actually thank Cafemutual and the entire team for a wonderful show. Having 400, 500 guests during the day is quite remarkable. So Prem and your team, super show. I have this topic about speaking about India with a 20-year view, and I have to do that in less than 18 minutes. It's not a easy task. So I'm going to get straight into this business of Amrit Kal and India's strategic direction. And a lot of you manage money. That's what you do professionally. And to manage money means you have to be in a safe and secure nation. अगर देश ही secure नहीं होगा, तो आपके capital और आपके markets का कोई फायदा नहीं है. So over the next 15-18 minutes, I'm going to try and highlight what's happening as far as India's security is concerned. Remember, we've been independent only 70 years. Prior to that, the British rule, and prior to that, the Mughal Empire. So 1000 साल हम लोग independent नहीं थे. 70 साल की ही ये independence है. और आपको ये जान के थोड़ी हैरानी होगी कि 70 साल में हम 6 युद्ध कर भी चुके हैं. We've already gone through 6 wars in the last 70 years. So if the nation is not safe, it's not secure, we aren't going to really enjoy the benefits of our investments. So with that background, please allow me to speak about Amrit Kal. And to do that, first you need to understand the new frontiers of warfare. It's not what you see alone. There are these नए forms of war आ चुके हैं. इनको मैंने 2 डब्बों में डाला हुआ है. And you can see that they are completely new formats. And each one of them is something that this nation faces. For example, cyber, electromagnetic pulse. The future of war is about water and not land. It's going to be economics. There's going to be trade war, biological warfare, something that we've all experienced, narrative and psychological operations. इसके बारे में मैं 2 मिनट के लिए बात भी करूँगा on narrative war and psychological operations. And finally, the piece that matters to everyone in this room is also semiconductors. So boss, सिर्फ गोली चलने का युद्ध नहीं होती है. It's in different formats. And please remember, on all of them, India is facing all of them on multiple fronts. So just to make things slightly easier, मैं सारे के सारे explain नहीं करूँगा, but I'll take the example of just 2, which is biological warfare and narrative. और ये दोनों बहुत interesting है. इसके बारे में आपको example उदाहरण देकर I'll explain to you what are we dealing with. And please remember, in none of these, a single bullet has been fired. So even when we lost soldiers in Galwan, we lost 20 soldiers, and even at that time, bullets were not fired. They actually fought hand to hand. So I'm going to take the example of biological warfare. COVID, something that we've barely gotten through. The fact that everyone is sitting here without a mask suggests that we're obviously all vaccinated. We've gone through it. But it's taken a toll on this nation. We've lost loved ones. We've lost relatives. We've lost economies. We've lost livelihood. It has been a biological weapon. Deliberate or not, I'm not getting into, but clearly there have been, look at the impact. it is in India, we went from after the first lockdown, and then India opened up. I want you to rewind and think 1 year, 18 months ago, kya hua tha? We opened up, and we were barely at 10,000 cases a day. From 10,000, we went to 4 lakh cases a day in 10 days, in like less than 10 days. And from oxygen requirement of 900 metric tons, we went up 10 times and we required 9,000 metric tons of oxygen. Again, please remember in less than 10 to 15 days. And from a situation where earlier India was suggested as, oh wow, well, we handled COVID very well in the initial stages. And what do we see next is India was shown as a country where people are dying because of lack of oxygen. And sare photos yahi hote the that people are dying and India is breathless. So again, please remember all this happened in a very, very short time frame. And you can, if you remember, it actually started sometime in March of 21 when the second wave came. It started right here in Bombay. And then we got hit in Delhi and finally came Bangalore. So first the financial capital got hit, then the national capital got hit, and third, the IT capital of this country got hit. And you'd probably remember this, we were a vaccine exporter. From being a vaccine exporter, we became a vaccine importer. And 70 countries depended on India for vaccine. They had to shift their focus to China. It's just an example I'm giving you of how a weapon was used. I don't have the time to get into details, but it's something I just wanted to jog your memories and let you know that this is serious stuff. The other one that I want to talk about is narrative. Do you know $15 billion is spent to change the way you think? If you don't believe me, I'm going to prove it to you right now. This is a list in which you don't want your nation to be. This is like having default category bonds in a fund, right? So you don't want to own this portfolio, right? So you don't want India out here. Do you want India out here? Not really, right? But you do have a country out here called China in this list because they worked with Taliban, they worked with Pakistan, and this. So I'm going to show you how narrative works in this case. As the Americans were leaving, this is what newspapers were splashing. The Americans were leaving Afghanistan, and the newspapers were splashing, Joe Biden leaves Afghanistan, America is leaving Afghanistan in tatters, सब टूट गया, US is not dependable. आपको याद है ना ये सब आर्टिकल आते थे कि America is not a dependable partner. Basically, Afghanistan withdrawal raises question about US stability. ठीक है, fine. 20 साल के बाद जा रहा है अमेरिका छोड़ के, so questions तो raise होंगे ही. And then finally, जब Economist में छप जाए तो मतलब turnaround होने ही वाला है. And America's failed war, US betrayed. मतलब यहाँ तक आ गया US ने betray कर दिया. चलो ठीक है, fine. 20 साल, remember they were there. And then in those 20 years, not a single attack happened on US soil. But this is what we were reading. This is mainstream media coming out to you every day. And then look at the flip side. China endorses Taliban. It is providing aid to Taliban. And then China is sending aid to Taliban, filling the gap the US has left. Arey bhai, you are working with Taliban, you're working with the Pakistanis, you're working with Afghanistan, you're a default category bond, and you are sounding AAA. Right? So look at the irony in all of this. And I'm not kidding you. मैं आजकल 3 से 4 घंटे पढ़ाई करता हूँ. So ये सब थोड़ा, I've kind of read a little bit about this. Country that fought terrorism for 20 years was portrayed as undependable. And a country that is like China was being hailed in the global media for providing aid to Taliban. Quite weird. It's not weird because it's actually money, hard cash, is used to change your narrative. And so please remember, we are at the front of 8 to 9 formats of war, 2 I just showcased. And if this is the case, if this is the story, then India has to be protected. And that gets me to what does all this mean for India and her future? अगर देश सुरक्षित रहेगा तो आपके इन्वेस्टमेंट सुरक्षित रहेंगे, नहीं तो कैपिटल मार्केट्स का कोई मतलब ही नहीं रहेगा. So what does it mean for her future? This is what I'm studying. This is what I'm beginning to see. My statements from here onwards, please don't construe them as political or my views around politics, but this is clearly what I'm studying and researching. I can share that with you. There are huge tectonic shifts in decision making in India. It's probably the first steps to Amrit Kal, and Amrit Kal is not just about the next 25 years. It is actually about the next 100 years. You have to take a 100-year view on the nation. You cannot just live for 25, 30 years. 100 is actually in the history of a country, 100 is of no relevance. So if I now take a 100-year view on this country, or even break it up into 50 years, there are three tectonic shifts taking place in progress. हो रहे हैं, धीरे-धीरे हो रहे हैं, but let me share with you the three of them. सबसे पहले, this country has started taking strategic alignment. So, I'll kind of explain this in a little quick way. The second biggest change I'm seeing in India is something called as offensive defense. And the third biggest shift I'm seeing in this country is India first. And very quickly, it is very different from what has happened in the last 70 years. Strategic alignment, हमारा पहला पूरा format used to be non-alignment. The entire Nehruvian thought process has been non-alignment. उससे पहले 26/11 हो चुका है in Mumbai, Parliament attack हो चुका है. We've had 6,033 terror attacks in 20 years. 6,033 terror attacks, one attack a day, up until 2014. And so our policy thinking used to be defensive, never retaliated, and it was always politics. So the big shifts in India are strategic alignment, offensive defense, and India first. In my remaining time, let me prove it to you that we are headed into all of them. Really? Wow. I'm going to have a tough time. Pakka? Okay. I'll try my best to do this as quickly as possible because I'll try my best. So strategic alignment. Desh badal raha hai. It is aligning with other nations for our interest. Strategic alignment. Quad ka naam aapne suna hoga. Ye Quad ka with Japan. We're dealing with Japan. We're dealing with Australia, United States, and India is coming together to form the Quad. Let me show you more examples. We signed agreements with the Americans. These are three agreements. Lemoa, Comcasa, Becca. These high-profile agreements that we signed. These agreements give us access to American satellites. I don't think they've shared this kind of agreements with too many countries in the world, perhaps with South Korea, etc. But we signed agreements with America for access to things which are extremely high-tech. So now please remember, Quad हो रहा है, America के साथ deal हो रहा है, but साथ में we're also buying Russian missiles, S-400. These are extremely sophisticated missiles. They've already been deployed on the borders, both in Punjab and in Jammu and Kashmir. So एक तरफ से America से भी agreement हो रहा है और एक तरफ से Russia से भी buying S-400 missiles. ऊपर से हम Israel के साथ अपना defense equipment, not just defense, not just drones, artificial intelligence पे बहुत काम हो रहा है Israel के साथ on one side. But on the flip side, we're busy dealing with Iran. So please remember, Moscow doesn't see eye to eye with Washington, but we do work with both. Israel doesn't see eye to eye with Iran, but we are dealing with both. And the Prime Minister of this country has been busy getting highest civilian awards from all of the Middle East, whether it's Bahrain or Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, the Maldives. So, I mean, I'm just giving you example after example of how strategic alignment is the future and how these things are starting to take shape. The other thing is vaccine diplomacy. This nation provided vaccines to 70 other countries. It became like the beacon of hope in a very, very tough environment. So not just receiving, we're also giving. And that makes things very, very different. So as far as strategic alignment is concerned, I'll just end this part by sharing with all of you that there are many things that we're not doing also. We didn't sign the Belt and Road Initiative with China. We also didn't sign the RCEP because both weren't in our favor. So I'm just leaving this idea with you that non-alignment के दिन खत्म, strategic alignment के दिन आ चुके हैं. First steps started well. 8 से 10 साल में ये थोड़े से steps दिख रहे हैं. it also shows what are we not doing. And I'm going to quickly dive into the second part, offensive defense. The point I was making to you, पहले terror attack होता था, कड़ी निंदा. The word used to be हम कड़ी निंदा करते हैं. I don't think कड़ी निंदा वाले days exist. I need another approval from you all. पक्का? नहीं तो प्रेम मेरे को प्रेम, it's okay. Can I continue for another 3 minutes? 2 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to quickly finish this. As far as offensive defense is concerned, सब कुछ बदल रहा है. हर साल from the last 6 years, we've retaliated whenever we've got hit. It has never happened. ये 2015 की photo है. This is a cross-border operation done on Myanmar. This is 2016, Uri. This is 17, Doklam, not Galwan. This is 17 in Doklam. 19, we had Balakot. And 2020, we had Galwan. Every year, whenever India has got hit, we've taken action and we've retaliated. This is something that I've never seen happen in the last 45, 50 years. And so you can actually see that India is starting to take action, baby steps, first steps. And the last thing I want to share with you is so many things happening as far as technology is concerned, but let me come quickly to the last section on offensive defense. Remember, we deal with 2.5 fronts. We deal with Pakistan, we deal with China, and we deal with internal insurgency. So it's very, very important that we don't back away from taking tough decisions. And the last section is India first. This, to my mind, is work in progress. And I think politics is important, but the nation is becoming even more important. Example after example. Strategic roads are being constructed, national highways. You can see digital, UPI, BHIM, the infrastructure. We are digitally 10 years ahead of the world. Toilets and Jan Dhan. Matlab, list lambi hai. And in all of this, finally, the point I want to leave with all of you is that I think this nation is getting safe and secure. I would think that in the next 25 years, there are new frontiers for India. Bharat version 2.0 is gaining traction, and investments ka Amrit Kal hai. My last point to all of you is there are at least 3 mutual funds sitting out here who have a 25-year track record. Each of them have delivered about 20% CAGR, which is 200 times the money has gone up. This is in the last 25 years. Take a bet on India and invest for the next 25 years. Jai Hind. Thank you.